Hello, everyone. I'm Cheryl with BookWidgets. Welcome to our Wednesday webinar series. Today's focus, Escape the Classroom game with BookWidgets. Of course, as we know, we want to engage our students in activities that are meaningful, but also engage them. And one of the ways that BookWidgets helps you really create those engaging activities is with an Escape the Classroom. So really, an escape the classroom is something that students have to solve. They have to try and find codes or tips within widgets and use those to go on a quest. We call that a web quest. The web quest is really the story that ties everything together in your widgets. So we want you to have that in mind as you're thinking about what might I do at this point of the year, or what might I do at the beginning of next year when I want to really engage my students. I have here for you some examples of what an escape the room would look like. And of course, let's dive in and take a look at our first one. You may be familiar with the game of Clue or Cluedo, and you'll see here that we have almost like a notebook set up with different tabs, or a storybook set up with different chapters. These down the left-hand side are going to keep our students organized. You can also see across the bottom, we have different tabs. So when we enter into one of our sections of our web quest, you will see that the tabs at the bottom change. So we have that toolbar on the left-hand side, and then we have different tabs at the bottom. And the way that you will guide your students through the web quest, when you do your first one, you want to guide them through, give them those tips and hints. So we have here our setting up of our story. And you'll notice that we can click right here, next. And I want you to watch what happens when I click next. I move along in my storyline. So if I haven't navigated all of my tabs here, I want to make sure that I look at all of my tabs here. Just like in the game of Clue, I have an embedded widget where I spin to find my character. Who will I be? Mrs. White. I never get Professor Plum. And we also have the game board set up so that the students can see exactly what we're going to do. And of course, a really crucial component of this web quest is our notebook. You'll notice this little arrow here, very familiar to us when we use widgets embedded inside other activities, like the planner. If you attended the planner webinar, we know that we click on this arrow and it will take us out to a widget. And in this instance, it's a notebook where we record our clues. And of course, I clicked on that a little quickly. So we will go ahead and point this out back to the game. That takes us right back to our notebook. We have our tabs across the bottom. And here we are. So I would suggest that you do walk your students through if they've never done an escape the room or a web quest before. So here we go on to our next chapter in our story, our next tab on that left side toolbar. And once again, it gives us all of the information that we need, and we can move on to how to solve our crime. So in this instance, the students are going to have to use their critical thinking skills, their reading comprehension skills, and their skills of observation to solve this mystery. We are always including the educational skills that your students need. It's not just a game for the sake of a game. So here we have all of the information for our floor plan. We click that next button, and it's up to you whether you click the button that's embedded here or go along down the side. It's totally up to you. We can see our suspects again here, get some information about them, and continue with our work. We have all of here in our clue game, all of our potential possibilities. And we have our rooms. So the students will navigate through these activities, spin the wheel to find their character, navigate through each of the rooms to see if they can try and solve this activity. Once again, you'll see that we have this arrow popping out telling us we need to click here to navigate into the room. And you'll notice that we have some hotspots. So the students are going to click on the hotspot. Professor was nowhere to be seen, but he seems suspicious. Could he be our potential suspect? What a hint. So I have to solve this puzzle in order to get a hint. And this is how I'm going to be able to escape the room or navigate my web quest in order to find our potential suspect. So the students, once again, have their tab. They work their way through each of the rooms, solving something in each of the widgets. They collect the clues along the way. And once they have collected their clues, after visiting each of the rooms, and you'll notice in this widget, each one of the rooms in this activity, each one of the rooms has a widget embedded in it. Once again, here we have our hotspot, and it looks so real. I love these images. Of course, you can find images in Pixabay or choose your own images. And the students will click on each of the hotspot to receive, another hint. In this instance, we have a matching game. And so the students will need to complete the matching game in order to receive a hint. Let me quickly walk you through this matching game to get the hint. My memory isn't very good. And once they have solved the matching game, there's our hint. Now we know it's not Miss Blue. How did that hint pop up, you're wondering? Don't forget, when you create your widgets, you can add feedback. And in that feedback or hint, we have two options. In this instance, in the feedback, once the students solved all of the matching pairs, they received the hint. So in each one of these activities, we have embedded a hint for you that will help you figure out who is or is not the murderer in our activity. It is best, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, but it's best that you provide that feedback immediately in a web quest so that the students can move on. You don't necessarily want to have activities that you want to provide that feedback for, but you want the students to be able to move on through each one of these activities at their own pace. So again, we're going to try and solve our puzzle. And once we solve our puzzle, the students will have a hint that pops up. And that's done through the embedding of the feedback in our widget. And then finally, when the students get to their notebook, this is where they have written down their clues and received some information. And now they're going to enter their information. So I know that it's not Miss Blue. So I'm going to say, I know that Miss Blue is innocent. I didn't go through each of those widgets. It can't be me. I'm Mrs. White. And then we're going to pick what we think our weapon is. And finally, the room. You'll notice here that the students do not have a submit button, but they have a show score button. This means that they're going to get that feedback immediately. Yes, I want to show my feedback. Oh man, I didn't solve the crime. That means that I'm going to need to come up to my pen right here in the upper right, change some of my answers, maybe go back to the game and look at some of those hints again, and then place my answers and check again to see if I have found who is the person responsible. So this is a really great game that you can use for English language arts, problem solving, critical thinking skills, Cluedo game. Let's take a look at our next widget, which is Help the Easter Bunny. This is a really awesome widget for primary grade levels. And we start with a before and after. Oh no, the poor Easter Bunny has hurt his ear, and we need to find somebody who will be able to take over and help out the Easter Bunny. In this instance, you'll notice that we don't have the sections in the sidebar on the side. We just have our tabs across the bottom. So really, this is great for those beginning users of technology. Not a lot of places for them to get confused or sidetracked. Very clear directions here in our WebQuest Escape the Room. Once again, you'll notice we have an embedded click here to take us to the next page. But remember, you don't necessarily have to navigate there. You can click on the tab and go immediately to your next activity. So here we are in our next activity, and we have these awesome candidates that want to be the Easter Bunny. We're going to practice some skills here. In this instance, we have our sidebar set up. We've had to find our matching eggs, so a matching activity. We also have a spot the difference activity. And I'm going to tell you, I had to really work to find all 10 of the images. You'll notice here, we have the counter up here so that you can look for that activity. So right away, I notice that I have an extra bird here. And you'll notice that immediate feedback. If you say, okay, I think that there's something different here, right away, we get the square that shows us, yes, you found a difference. Now I'm looking and I think, oh, this is different. And we get that X that tells us, go ahead and try again. So the students will find all 10 of the hidden images in the egg hiding activity and then move on to the egg hunt. I love this. And look, once we finish, of course, I did this ahead of time. I wasn't that quick, but you'll see here that it says that I've achieved the skill and that I'm going to be able to move on. So we get that immediate feedback again for our students without the help of the instructor saying, we have to move on. We don't have time to wait for you, Cheryl. So you have that where you can work on your own and you can move on. And then finally, we have a coloring activity here where the students will be able to practice some of those fine motor skills. I think this is really wonderful WebQuest. Sometimes people think that I can't complete a WebQuest with my primary grade students. You definitely can. It says that we've achieved our last skill, and here's our number. So we're going to need to remember our number. We get to our final badge. So a web quest can be where I have to find somebody like the murderer, or in this web quest, I'm going to get a badge. In order to receive the badge, I have to enter the password. Well, where did the password come from? Remember, at each of your activities that you were working on, you're going to get a number or a letter, and you're going to place that into your password. And once you've entered it correctly in your password, you will receive your badge. And of course, the students will love that they have a badge that they can display or share. It might be here if you want to know that your students completed the entire web quest, that you ask them to take a screenshot, or you have some type of widget where you ask them to submit something to you so that you know that they completed that activity. So those are two ways that we can take a look at creating an escape the room. Let's take a look at another one. Spooky night of Halloween and Brat Spook. What has happened to Brat? Oh no, As you can see, Brat is not doing so well. And in this instance, we've been told that we have to find three things: the time, the weapon, and the killer. So another take along the lines of clue. Along the way to solving a crime, you'll get tips and clues, but only when you find out the time, the weapon, and the person do you get that promotion, the inspector badge you want. So once again, we built in that idea of gamification, right? Our students love to have a goal. And when we say the goal is to become a better reader, to them, sometimes it's not as engaging as the goal is to get your inspector badge. So here our students will navigate to the crime scene. They can choose either way that they would like to navigate to the crime scene. They get to take a look around and they're going to check out the crime scene. Well, I see this number 1. Let me click on it. Okay. That's a mouthful, right? Let's take a look and see what else we have. Is that chocolate? Is that candy? What could that be? And then finally, let's also take a look at these hot spots. 5 monsters were here. So we have clues here that the students will want to take a look at. They need to use their reading and their reading comprehension skills to make sure that they understand everything that's happening in the picture. And we definitely know that something bad has happened. You'll also notice that if students try to click elsewhere, right, nothing will pop up for them. So we have marked for them 1, 2, and 3, and then we also have an icon for the other spots that they may want to click on. Once again, these are totally customizable. And of course, you will do that in your widget. So we've taken a look at the crime scene. So now let's take a look at our suspects. Once again, we have those directions of what we will need to do. 5 possible suspects. So we're going to need to interrogate and listen to each of our suspects. And you'll notice that we can navigate through 1, 2, 3. I love this mummy. 4, 5. And in this instance, the students can go back and read these as many times as they want to gather any clues that they feel that they might need. I didn't see anyone lying on the ground between 10 and 11. So we have clues here that the students will be gathering in their web quest. So we had the suspects. Now we're on to our murder weapon. And once again, we're going to solve our puzzle in order to figure out what can we do or what do we need to do? Is there a hint based here in order to move on? And once again, what skills are we focusing on? Trial and error. I haven't succeeded yet, but I am going to succeed. That growth mindset activity, right? Where students will be trying and not being successful and moving on. And once they solve that puzzle, then perhaps a hint or a clue will be revealed for them. Remember, once again, how is that hint or clue revealed? You as the teacher are going to place that feedback into the puzzle, into your widget to provide that immediate feedback to the students. Now we're off to the lab. In this instance, we have a math problem. So students are able to pull up their calculator. Let me see if I can get this correct. And then they will be able to solve all of the problems onto the activity here. And once they do, a clue will be revealed. If the student feels like the activity is too difficult, you'll notice in this instance, they can skip it. Oh man, I didn't get it right. Let me try again and see if I can get this correct. Let me just work quickly through these so I can show you what will happen when you solve all of the problems. Thank goodness these are easy problems for me. So the students will be working on their math skills here. Oh. And they select that, am I right? Immediate feedback. And I love this idea of immediate feedback for students. So many times students are feeling pressure. I'm not the quickest one. I'm not the fastest one. In this way, they can work on their own. If they miss a problem, like I missed that problem, nobody knew but me. So it's definitely all right. Of course, don't forget, if you have LMS, if you have an LMS integration, you can follow along your students' progress. Yay! I got 2 stars, I didn't get 3 stars, but that's all right. And if I want to try again, I can. And then look here, I have a clue. When I'm all done, I'm going to hop into my inspector badge and I have to enter a 5-digit code. And there's some information here in case I need to go back. I need the time of the murder. I need the name of the murderer in the suspects tab. I enter it and then I click to see. If I don't have the wrong code, I can come back and I can look at these activities. Oh, sorry about that. I can come back and look at these activities and away I go. Let me just take a quick dive into treasure hunt. This one is for math, so it's the same idea. I'm working on percentages. I have my directions to get me started. Then my start, this time with an embedded video. I work my way through the treasure hunt. Here's my embedded widget. And then when I'm done, I have my activities here. We hope you enjoyed this hunt. You know how much gold you found. You are going to get 25% of it. So you're able to calculate those percentages in this treasure hunt. So we want to show you that an Escape the Room is not just for English language arts or reading. It can also be used for science, math, and even history. In this widget, our final widget, Spartacus is a slave, and we're going to be experiencing a gladiator's life. So we're going to be learning about aspects of Roman culture. Here we're going to be talking about the theater, the Colosseum. And you'll notice here that the students have to solve a hangman question in order to get a number. They tell us here that we have to find a number. I'm going to guess the number 6. Yes, I need to remember, notice it says the first number of the lock is the solution. So I need to remember the number 6. And I can use a digital piece of paper to write that down, or I can put it into a notebook. And the students work their way through these activities, learning about the gladiator's life, learning about Greek and Roman history, but also engaging in some fun activities that they can do in order to engage those students a little bit more. Use the links to complete the quiz. When they complete the quiz, they will get the last number of the lock. And good news for Spartacus, if we remember all of the numbers on the lock, we put our password in and we are able to move on. You can do these activities collaboratively where students work together, or you can do these activities individually. As I said, when we was going through those widgets, they're all about those critical thinking skills and problem solving, reading comprehension, reviewing for a test. Maybe you're preparing for end of course exams, state assessments, AP exams, IB exams. This is a great way to synthesize all of that knowledge together. And you could even do something with themes or current affairs. Everything is there for you in BookWidgets. Remember, once again, you don't need to leave BookWidgets to complete these activities. Let's review those 3 types of activities that we had. You break the code or get the combination to free a character, open a door, or move on. You might also receive a badge, like getting the best detective badge, a trophy, or a medal. Or finally, this is what my students love, a hint for an upcoming test or bonus points for an upcoming test, a reward of some type, 5 extra minutes of computer time, something that they can do, or an extra tip on a homework or a quiz. My students love that idea of completing the web quest and getting a reward. If you're going to use a code that you need to crack for a quiz or a worksheet, the directions to do that are to open your quiz or worksheet, navigate to General, Start Up, and then you will find that password. So let me just show you where that is. Here in, oh, let me see if give me just 1 minute. I will pull it up. I don't want to take too much of Lucy's time. You will place that in your widget, General, Startup, and then enter that password. Of course, remember, your students will not see that. The startup password is what the students will have to have in order to start that breakout session or complete that lesson. And then you can also give them that diploma or a certificate of some type in an activity where they will enter it. And then, yay, in honor of Teacher Appreciation Day, you crack the code and we have a toast to you. Don't forget, we'll have all of these activities for you, so they will be available for you. Please don't worry that we're going through these too fast, Cheryl, or I need some help with that. And I do want to show you where that is, where you're going to put in your password. So if you have your quiz, and you hop on over to your General. Remember, General is where you have all of these options. And right here, you have that startup password. Make sure you write down your startup password, or you'll have to come back to your widget to take a look at it again. And then you can choose, do I want the startup password only once? Or if my students come back, am I going to make that startup password again? Sometimes that frustrates my students. So I usually select once, but that's always up to you, how you would like to complete that. And don't forget, we also had the option of that detective notebook where you can write down your notes. It's a great way for you to help your students stay organized by including that place for them to keep handy track of their notes so that they don't have to go back and forth through all of that widgets to find it. So I think I'm going to pass this off to Lucy now. Lucy, I think I'm
here.
right at the perfect,
Yes.
I think I'm right at the perfect time.
Yes, that's true. So I just share my screen. So normally I took over and I can do the next part of this webinar. So thank you, Cheryl, for showing so much of the great examples. And we're going to dig a little bit deeper into one example specifically just to show you how you can create this. Of course, this is actually a web quest-based activity. Creating an escape the classroom game is always within a web quest, and we're not entirely showing how you can create a web quest step by step. We do have another webinar for that for you to join. It's also a recording, so you can take a look at that, but I do want to show you some other things here. So for this example, we haven't showed you yet. You can find the link as well, and you can make a copy in your account. You will get the slides, so you can get every link in here, as Cheryl already mentioned. So I just want, because, yeah, last week it was Teacher Appreciation Week and Teacher Appreciation Day. So I think this is a nice exercise and kind of a basic escape the classroom. If you're just getting started, this is where you can get started, and you can take a look at this one to get started here. So again, as Cheryl explained, you have an introduction where you kind of set the story for your students, in this case for teachers, and then they go around. So it is Teacher Appreciation Day. Are you really that good of a teacher? Let's see if you got the skills that you need. Then they have to kind of show what a teacher's job is and go through the steps. And again, click on these built-in links to go further inside the web quest. As you can see again, like in many of the web quests we've showed already, we can have tabs below and we can have tabs at the side. I will show you just in a minute where you can find that inside a web quest. So here we have a widget that is embedded that you can see, okay, they have to do classroom management. Okay, it's an image with a very busy classroom, so they can kind of add, fill out, make the puzzle and get the message, the reward word that is behind it to get their first clue. And then again, we go below to challenge number 2 and challenge number 3. And when they have done all the challenges, again, like in all the other web quests, there's a worksheet behind it with a word, with a password. And I think Cheryl already showed what's behind it. It's kind of a congratulation message for all teachers. And that's actually basically really short, kind of the real structure for a web quest, for an escape the classroom game. I'm going to show you where you can find this, and when you want to create one, what kind of things you have to make sure you do. So the first thing that you will also see and get is this group link. Make sure to click on it. There are some examples in it already. And of course, this example that of the teacher challenge that I just showed is in here as well. When you're creating an escape the classroom game, it's a good thing to put everything in the same folder, as the web quest will be your general structure, and you will be putting in different widgets to hide clues and to form your story until the end. And also a worksheet or a quiz can be used as kind of a digital log as well. So make sure that you create a folder, create a new folder, kind of make it escape room, give it a title, escape room maybe, and put in everything of that web quest inside of, let's see that I can find it. Yes, everything inside this as well. I don't think I have everything, that's okay. Just indicate everything and just move it to the right folder. Move selected widget, escape room. Okay, just like that. So all my widgets will be here together. And when I want to create a web quest, I just click on create new and choose a web quest widget. And I have everything ready to put in as well. I'm just going to open the one I have here. So edit. So you can see how it looks like. So when you start a new web quest, these steps will already be filled out. So you can change it by just clicking on the first step and giving it a name. As you can see, these are called steps, and these, when you go to preview, are always below. So this is where you indicate the big chapters within your story or within your escape the classroom game. And inside these steps, you're going to add information. You will have this white field and you can start adding your information. You can do some formatting. Again, I'm not going to explain how you can do the formatting, but I will follow up with you in the email later on with the right link to the right webinar to teach how you can create a web quest. So you can also create these links so teachers can jump to other tabs, so students can jump to other tabs as well. Again, open the other tab, maybe change the title, add some explanation, and so on. This one is a special one. As you've seen in many of the examples, we had those sections that were created. So when I go to preview and when I go to the teacher challenge, I can see that this particular tab is actually divided into kind of subsections, subtabs, smaller parts, as you say, or sections. So you can see that we can kind of split a bigger team into different steps right here. So our students can go from the one to the other, and it's still kind of glued together. And to create those sections, you can do this as well inside your tab by kind of just highlighting it and clicking on the S right now to create your section. It is actually very easy to do that. As you can see as well, you can just start adding widgets. When you are in the white part, you can click on the plus and you get the chance to insert images. You can insert video materials or embed other web pages. When you click on this wheel, so in this cogwheel, you will be able to add widgets. So it will immediately go to your widget library. You can navigate to a different group and find any widget you want to include inside your web quest. And that's why it's really handy to already have everything together in one folder, so you can always navigate to that folder to insert your widgets that kind of stick together here. If you have inserted a widget and you still want to make some changes, it doesn't really matter. You can click on the widgets that's just put there and click on the cogwheel right here to go to that widget. You can see that this is a puzzle, and again, also you can change the reward word. This is interesting. This is an interesting fact that you can hide clues within game widgets by changing the reward word from congratulations to, for example, this is the code, or this is a clue, or this is a tip. And that's basically real quick how you can create and escape the classroom using the web quest and adding other widgets with different clues. This is a template you can use and you can find using the group. You can duplicate the template, you can change it around. This is a basic one. As you've seen, we have a lot of other web quests as well that are more elaborate too. But again, if you're just starting out, I suggest you start with this one. And then we're going a little bit further. We've already said so much, and some things will also show what Cheryl already said. And that's the first thing here, that is that you can hide codes in game widgets. So we've all put the widgets here, so you can see that you can hide a reward word inside a pair matching game, a memory game, a spot the difference game, a word search, an arithmetic, and a jigsaw puzzle game as well. So all these 6 widgets, there you can change the reward word and also add audio. So that's also an interesting fact, that if they complete a pair matching game, they will get a message, a written message, but you can also just insert an audio, or not also, but if is also possible. So just insert an audio with you giving them a spoken tip. That's also a possibility. Here are some widgets behind it, but Cheryl already showed them. So inside the puzzle itself, instead of just giving a reward word, you can also hide a clue inside the puzzle. So in this case, we hide the murder weapon inside the puzzle. So when they complete it, they will be able to find the murder weapon as well. That's also a possibility. You just have to think about it very creatively. And then we have some other photo and film widgets where you can hide some clues. The first one, of course, are invisible pop-ups, or visible pop-ups in this case, where students just have to go on a hunt and look what they can find inside the image. You can really build a story with just an image and adding the adding sound, widgets, images, and text on it. So in this case, you can embed images on top of an image. You can add text, and I think this is also text. You can add audio, as I've said before, images, widgets, and other web pages too. The interesting thing is here that students really know where to click. You can also add hotspots that are hidden so that students cannot find, so they have to click and just find some things. The image viewer is basically a very, very easy widget. You just have to add your image and you're done. In this case, we added an image, and inside the image, I've hidden a lot of arithmetics. So with the image viewer, students can kind of pan around your image. They can zoom in, zoom out. And in this case, they have to look for clues. So they can, in this case, again, arithmetics, but you can also add other tips or clues or hints inside this nice painting of the Mona Lisa, or maybe something else that really represents your lesson. There you can hide clues inside images. Then we have the image carousel. This is also an underestimated widget, I would say. So you can add pop-ups and hotspots to a series of images. So instead of just having the hotspot image, which is one widget where you can start adding pop-ups and text and video and widgets, here you can have several images with different kinds of hotspots. And there's also a Google Maps twist. So if you're adding an image, you can also refer to the image on Google Maps. So, for example, you're teaching about volcanoes, and your students have to find a hint to go further in the next widget. So kind of, they need to find a clue to go further. You could say, okay, this is a sine cone volcano. This is a composite volcano, and so on. And you could say, okay, the largest shield volcano, where is it located? And I need kind of the coordinates. So, and you can use the coordinates as a hint. In this case, you can see that there's the Google Maps twist. They click on this one, and they can see that it's located on Mauna Kea, on the Mauna Kea volcano, Hawaii. So they can find, you can use this as a tip that you gave. So I don't think I gave the name. I think they have to know the name of the biggest one. So this is actually their answer. So you can kind of go from the one and the other, going through the images. And in this case, there are no hotspots on top of the volcanoes, but there is an explanation and a Google Maps twist. And you can use this for students to use it as a tip or a hint or a clue in your web quest. Then again, we saw that in some of the widgets, we kind of let students go through only when they have the right answer. So this is first kind of mastery learning. So this means that students can only go further when they master the learning. And if they don't master it, they have to keep on practicing. So it's a little bit differentiation. And you can use this in your web quest and in your eduscape or escape the classroom game as well. So students have to find the right answer, and only if they do, they can go to the next step. This is perfect for mastery learning, like I said before, but it's also used for students to just go through your widgets step by step. So they cannot jump to the end of a widget because, of course, they won't have all the clues, and they still need a clue within the quiz, the worksheet, or the split worksheet. So only students who pass will receive a password or a tip to continue. They must then enter this password as the starter password in the following command. An example. So this is a basic widget. It's a web quest. It's an eduscape about Europe and European cities. And my students open this widget and they have to indicate all the capital cities. They have to match the monuments and they have to go through like this, to which countries do these special food specialties belong and so on. And when they are done, they can take a look at the answers. In this case, it's not okay. So the student didn't pass this widget and they can also not go any further. So what the student has to do is click on this little pen and go over the answers again. So let's see if I can do it real quick, better than before. Paris, like this, spaghetti. That should be it. And then when I click on show answers, yes, then I get good work. Go to the next exercise. That's a link you can give them to go to the next exercise, of course. But in this case, in an eduscape or escape the classroom game, I would prefer to give them a password. So the password of the next lesson, called Europe Part 2, or the next lesson in your web quest, would be capitals. So then they just go further in your story within the web quest, open a new exercise, and they bump until against this wall, this password wall. They cannot go any further. Only if they enter the password capitals, they can go further in the next exercise. So this is really interesting to know that you can give students feedback and you can give them passwords only when they went through your exercise right, when they master the learning as well. So how can you create this? I go to make a copy in my account. This is what you can do as well. So that's why I put it in as there. You can make a copy to take a look at all the features and all the settings inside this widget. The first thing we do, of course, is add all the questions that my students have to solve. I also have to add a scoring weight because this feedback is actually based upon the score that my students get, so they really need to be graded. And then I go to title and reporting. In this case, my students don't have to submit the answers, and I don't want them to. I think in an escape the classroom, it's always clearer to get them through without always having to submit. But in case you want this, you can enable submitting of answers as well. That doesn't really matter if you do that or not. And then you go to general options, and the first one, correction and scoring options. Here are some interesting things enabled. So normally I disable show correct answers when the quiz is done, because they will click on show answers and afterwards they will already see the correct answers. And that's not my intention. If it's like an escape the classroom, it might be interesting for you to do that, but I would disencourage this one. Then I want to, let's see, allow editing. This is also a very interesting one because when my students receive feedback and it's not good, they have to redo the widget until they master the learning. So they have to be able to click on the little pen icon in the upper right corner, and the icon only appears when you click here. I'll always allow editing. And then the last one and the most important one here is the feedback. So we are providing feedback based upon the percentages that my students achieved. So we're just clicking on this button, add feedback. And I usually start with the lowest one. So if the score of my student is lower than 60%, this is the feedback that my student gets. And then, of course, I need to add another feedback rule, and that would be below 100%. And then this would be my feedback message. I can hear you think that, of course, yeah, below 100, but then everyone would get this feedback message. Yes, if only this is what you add. But if you're adding another feedback rule, so if you're having 2 rules, they will complement each other here as well. So don't worry about it. Just if you just have to have more than 1 rule if you want them to work together. So in this case, between 60 and 100%, my students will get my password, my tip, my clue, anything else you want to give them here inside the automatic feedback. That's a whole, that's a lot, of course, but we're going a little bit more further, but I hope this is a nice touch, not just only for creating escape the classroom games, but also when you want to differentiate and you want your students to really master the learning before they move on to a next topic. You can also hide riddles and clues inside quizzes, worksheets, and split worksheets. And I have brought some examples. So here is the widget link. This is an amazing example. This is actually a split worksheet where on one side I give my students a grid. And of course, without any explanation, they will not know how to use it. But in this case, you can see that it says 3, 4. So that would be, if I am right, I'm not sure, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then, oh, no, 1, 2, 3. And the 4th letter, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's a W. And then 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We. And as you can see, as when I am entering this, I enable the option that my students immediately see the correct answer. So when I add something, it turns green. So this means I did it right. And in this case, you can hide messages using different code systems and coders that you can use to create your questions. This question here, this is an annotate picture question. So I added, the background is just a picture, and then I added all the fields with the letters on it. Moving on, we have a puzzle. So I don't know if you know this kind of puzzle, but in this case, it are a few questions, just a text question with instructions. The puzzle, which is a table, you can also add a table within a text question, and then an open-ended question, a multi-line text question. So here we have to look for the 5 word groups of 4 words. So we have to find 4 themes. So let's see, a panda, brown, let's see. I think, wait, F should be 1. And we have to make the connections between all the words. See that there is a connection, of course. A king, there is as well, from King Kong as well. Elvis is the king. A color, red hot chili peppers, maybe. It should be red, maybe, and so on. So you can also add these words and kind of add a puzzle inside your worksheet. That's a fun thing to do. You can take a look at the score, and I have 2 things right. Just 2 out of 5, so I need some more digging here. I have to dig a little bit deeper inside this puzzle, but that's also possible. Another example here, and that's also a fun one, is again a split worksheet where on one side we've embedded a maps, so just a Google Maps Street View actually link, and I have to follow these instructions in French. So I am learning French. I'm learning the instructions, and I have to follow the instructions. So go tourner à droite. So let's see, si vous quittez l'école, tournez à droite et je dois, voilà, suivez le virage et traverser le boulevard, traverser, voilà, and and so on, and so on. So I have to switch languages. So when I go through all the instructions, I come at a statue. And this statue is a very famous statue in Belgium. So that's actually my answer. That's also the question. And when I have followed everything right, I come at this statue and I can take a look at the score. And again, I get this automatic feedback based upon my score. So I found it, I am happy, I can move on so the password to enter. The next part of this web quest is mannekes. Okay. And just one last here is a winter math activity. This isn't a part of a Escape the Classroom game, but it's so creative that it's so fun to use. So here my students just have to follow the instructions, and using these clues, as you might say, they will draw something. And of course, if you want to put it inside an Escape the Classroom game, you could ask as a starter password what they've drawn. So what they drew here on the whiteboard. So you can really use it as a clue as well. The most important part, as you already know now, is the glue in your lesson, and that is the web quest. So your web quest will tie all the elements together, will make sure all your widgets succeed each other, and using these internal links to go from one tab to the other, you kind of create a pathway and a story for your students to go through, and of course, so they don't get lost. I've put the webinar link in here, so if you want to know everything about creating WebQuest, you can take a look at it here. I have just a few more extra tips before we end this webinar. And the first thing is, of course, to make a plan. If you're thinking about doing an eduscape, you need to know the theme, you need to know the goals that your students have to achieve, the assignments that you will put in, all the widgets, how you will hide your codes, what the codes are, all those kinds of things. So it might be interesting to draw it out for yourself first before getting started. I have just an example here as well. So you can also enter, this is just a quiz widget, but it's just one question and students don't have to submit it. It's just for the teacher. And this is for me. When I'm doing this web quest, I can take the cheat codes and I know again, when my students don't get through or when my students need some help, as a teacher, I really know in all those kinds of tabs inside my web quest, that's the startup and password, that will be the answer they will get. And that's how they can find the password. All those kinds of things are very important for you to have in just one widget gathered. We have entered something new as well, just a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and that is the info tab. So let me show you. When I open my web quest or any other widget, I now have the About tab. And before I used to make widgets with all the cheat codes in it, now you can actually just put it here inside your About tab. So all the widgets that are in it, you can mention them, you can mention the codes and the tips they get, the startup password, all those kinds of things. And this is just visible to you as a teacher, to the people that can access this widget. So if you're going to access my widget, you will be able to see that as well. But of course, students won't be able to access the back side, the back portal of a widget. So this is where you can put all your cheat codes in as well. And then I highly recommend that students don't have to submit every single exercise, every single step within your web quest, because first you will get all the different works separately. So you will, for each activity your students have to solve, you will get that in your grading dashboard. I think it's better to just let them go through, use the automatic feedback based upon a score, so they don't have to submit. And maybe in the end, you could do the last widget, you ask them to submit, so you have proof that they got to the last widget. That is something you can ask, but for the rest, I would say don't let them submit it. It's making it more complicated for them and for you as well. As you can see, we had a few widget types where you immediately can see what is in, let's see, if I can jump to it real quick. Here it is. So the Halloween murder, for example, you can see that the widgets are loading directly inside the webinar, in the web quest. So this is a hotspot. They're loading directly inside my web quest. And on the other hand, the one that I showed you, let's see if I can find the other example. Here, for example, the Cluedo one. Here, your students have to click, choose it. Here it is. Here, your students have to click on the icon to open the widget. So there are two ways of adding a widget. And the best way is adding a widget where they have to click so it opens and then go back. Because if you embed your widgets, that's okay. You can do that by adding a link, but it just make sure your students don't have to submit it to you. Because if you're used to working with Google Classroom or Microsoft Teams or any other learning management system, if your students have to submit something inside an embedded widget, the connection is lost, so your students are not logged in anymore. And they are still logged in if you're adding it like this with a cogwheel. I'll show you the difference real quick that I can make sure that you understand what I'm talking about. So here in the teacher challenge, I added a widget in the right way. So this is what I always encourage. Click on the plus, click on the cogwheel, and that's the right way. When your students are making the assignments, they will be automatically logged in. So if they have to submit something, they're logged in. If you use this embed icon and paste the widget link, then it will open right away inside the web quest, which is of course very cool, but know that sometimes it is more difficult when you want your students to submit. And that's also basically why just not submitting is maybe better if you're using a web quest widget. Yes, I think I am through. We have just one more slide, just groups and websites. These are some amazing groups and websites inside BookWidgets that you can go through. So if you're looking for inspiration and lots of the web quests you've just seen today, you can find them in the BookWidgets blog. Most of them are there. There's also an escape room group as well, and primary education group is as well a good thing to start. Just looking for inspiration, but also sharing them. If you want, please do share your widgets yourself.